Thank you very much. Well, let me try to give you a quick update on the humanitarian situation, particularly in Darfur. The context, as you all know, is the decision which was taken by the government of Sudan in the wake of the ICC indictment to effectively expel 13 international NGOs and revoke the license of 3 national NGOs working in the humanitarian field. That's a decision we have continuously pressed should be reversed because of its potential consequences. The particular development today, as you may be aware, and as the documents which you've, I think, just been looking at or just been picking up reveal, is that we now have the conclusion of the joint assessments which were going on in the 3 Darfurs. That was in the course of the previous week. There has been some tough discussions about this, but there is now agreement on the technical findings of these joint assessments, which essentially look at the immediate critical gaps and look particularly ahead to the prospects for the next couple of months. What you'll see there is a joint forward and executive summary of that assessment, signed both by the head of the Humanitarian Assistance Commission in Sudan, Mr. Hassabo, and Amira Haq, who is the UN Humanitarian Coordinator sitting in Khartoum. They signed that this morning and they gave a joint press conference a few hours ago. The full assessment itself is still being worked on in some technical details, but is likely to be released shortly. The assessment does not cover all sectors in all areas of Darfur, because we weren't not able in the time available, for example, to go to some of the remote rural areas, and it was focusing on 4 key areas of food, health and nutrition, non-food items, if you like, and shelter, and water and sanitation. So there are other areas outside that it wasn't focusing on. So it was looking at, in particular, what the situation was in those areas, and what the potential impact over time, if the gaps left by the NGOs which have been expelled, if those gaps are not filled in a full and sustainable way. What the assessment essentially shows, and I won't go through all the numbers because you can see them for yourself in the document you've got, is that while a significant effort is being made by the government, by the UN, by the NGOs which are left, to plug some of the immediate gaps in these areas, these are at the same time band-aid solutions, if I can put it that way, not long-term solutions. For example, the World Food Programme, as we discussed before, has carried out a quick and dirty food distribution to cover the people who were going to be without coverage because of the disappearances in NGOs, but that's not an exercise which can sensibly be repeated. That will cover 2 months. At the end of those 2 months, we need to find some proper partners for WFP if the decision is not reversed. In the nutrition and health area, for example, there are significant numbers of malnourished people in need of therapeutic feeding, for example, who are not receiving that at the moment, so we need to find arrangements to do that on a proper basis. In the non-food area, we need to make arrangements to distribute the kind of goods that people need in terms of non-food items, that's cooking equipment and whatever it might be, to some almost 700,000 people. Otherwise, they simply will not be distributed in time. And we're thinking particularly here about the rainy season coming up in a couple of months' time. And then, as we discussed before, there are particular concerns in the area of water and sanitation. The immediate gaps in terms of provision of water through provision of fuel to the water pumps and so on are being covered just about, but there's no sustainable solutions there in place, because you need to have not only fuel for this week and next week, you need fuel for on a sustainable basis, on a finance basis, you need maintenance, you need surveillance, you need monitoring of water control, all the things that go with that, and those are gaps which have not yet been filled. And for example, on the sanitation side, there's no arrangements yet to cover sanitation, I mean, without going into some of the nastier details, to clean out the latrines which are there, clean out the sludge tanks, without which, of course, health gaps, health problems are going to arise, and disease outbreaks are more likely, and that's particularly the case as the rainy season approaches. I mean, I mentioned the rainy season because that is coming in a couple of months' time, starting probably in May, if it starts on the usual timescale. That always complicates the issue of moving aid around. It always increases the chances of disease outbreaks. And it's also combined with the hunger gap, which is the gap between the end of one harvest and the start of another is also there for the next few months, so this increases what we have to do. So I say, well, we're very pleased that we have these this technical assessment now in place, and that we have agreement on that. What it also reveals for us is that there's a huge amount of work to do, as I say, if the decisions are not reversed quickly, in order to make sure that there is a sustainable and effective aid operation in place. And this covers areas, and again the executive summary brings it out, like staffing, what's going to happen to the local staff who are there, like financing. It needs to be sustainable financing, not just for next week, next month, or even the rest of this year, but for however long it's needed. Access is crucial, obviously, here as elsewhere. We need to make sure that the bureaucratic impediments, which have been such a problem in Darfur in the past, are not repeated. The administrative arrangements, new technical agreements with the NGOs that are left, for example, need to be agreed rapidly. But also things like monitoring and surveillance. This is all to do with the quality and sustainability of the aid operation, even if you can, as I say, plug some of the immediate gaps in a very short term and crude way, if I can put it like that. Because that, as I say, is the main point I want to make in a way, that a huge aid operation like Darfur, and it's the biggest humanitarian operation in the world, $1 billion a year, needs not only the goods to hand out and the people to hand them out, but it also needs the kind of expertise and experience and long-term effort to go behind that in terms of planning, project design, monitoring, assessment, surveillance, evaluation. And these are capacities which cannot or have to be built over time, and they cannot be replaced in the short term. There is, of course, also something that goes with that, which is the issue of political access, if I can put it that way, because there are areas where, for example, the government, if they're trying to replace services, or some national NGOs, will find it, or do find it, too difficult and too dangerous to go because of the attitudes of the people in, for example, one or two camps. We also, as I've said before, over time need to rebuild trust and rebuild an effective operating environment. That's not something which can be done instantly, so we have to work on that as well. So I think, as I say, to summarize, this agreed technical joint assessment is a good step forward, reveals some of the issues we have to face, but it's only the first of many steps. If the people in Darfur are not going to suffer major consequences from these expulsions, the risks are high, and as the humanitarian coordinator in Sudan put it this morning, the key tests still lie ahead. One final point on this perhaps is that, of course, one of the key issues is always going to be, and has been, security. It's a matter of great regret for us, more than regret, that yet again a local aid worker for a Canadian NGO, the Fellowship for African Relief, was shot dead this morning in an incident in Darfur, apparently to do with theft, but that needs to be investigated further. But this is an illustration, or together with incidents that have happened to UNIMID in the past days, of the problems that lie ahead in that area too, which we also need to resolve if we're going to have, as I say, the kind of effective operation we need for the future.